On February 7th, 2026, the world of rock music fell unusually quiet, as if a familiar voice had gently stepped back from the microphone for the last time. Brad Arnold was never just a singer. He was a companion to millions who leaned on his words during their loneliest moments. His voice carried strength without arrogance, vulnerability without weakness. For nearly 3 decades, he stood at the center of Three Doors Down, guiding listeners through themes of doubt, hope, and resilience. When news of his passing surfaced, it felt deeply personal to fans who had grown up with his songs as emotional landmarks. Brad sang about perseverance long before people realized how much he embodied it himself. Even in moments when his own life was heavy, he chose to give comfort rather than ask for it. This story is not about tragedy alone, but about a man who offered connection until the very end. Where the story truly began. Long before arenas and anthems, Brad Arnold was a teenager in Escatawpa, Mississippi, sitting in a high school classroom with a notebook that mattered more than the lesson on the board. He wasn't dreaming of fame or fortune. He was simply trying to make sense of the emotions that felt too large to contain. Music became his language of survival, a place where insecurity could coexist with strength. One afternoon, while most students counted minutes until the bell rang, Brad began writing lyrics about a hero who wasn't invincible after all. That quiet moment planted the seed for something far greater than he could have imagined. It reflected the honesty that would later define his career. From the very beginning, his gift was not perfection, but relatability, and that authenticity would eventually resonate far beyond Mississippi. Lightning in a bottle. When the year 2000 arrived, the music landscape was ready for something sincere, something that didn't hide behind excess or spectacle. Three Doors Down emerged at exactly the right moment, carrying songs that felt grounded and emotionally direct. Their debut album, The Better Life, didn't slowly climb its way into relevance. It surged forward, powered by melodies and lyrics that felt instantly familiar. Kryptonite became an anthem not because it was loud, but because it was honest. Brad's voice didn't demand attention. It earned it. Songs like Loser and Duck and Run captured the quiet fears people rarely admitted out loud. Almost overnight, a band from a small southern town became a defining sound of a generation, and Brad Arnold became a voice people trusted without fully understanding why. Fame. Without a mask. What set Brad Arnold apart during his rise was how little he tried to be anything other than himself. He wasn't performing a character or hiding behind image-driven theatrics. On stage, he looked like someone you might know, someone who could just as easily be standing beside you at a gas station as in front of a crowd of thousands. That authenticity helped The Better Life sell millions of copies and cemented Three Doors Down as more than a passing success. When Away from the Sun followed, Brad revealed another layer of his artistry, showing that vulnerability could be just as powerful as defiance. Songs like Here Without You slowed the tempo and widened the emotional range of the band. Fame arrived quickly, but Brad carried it quietly, never fully separating himself from the person he was before the spotlight found him. The weight behind the applause. Success often appears effortless from the outside, but the reality of constant touring and public expectation can quietly erode even the strongest foundations. As Three Doors Down moved from city to city, the pace rarely allowed time for reflection or rest. Brad carried the responsibility of being the face of the band, the steady presence fans depended on. The applause faded each night, replaced by silence in hotel rooms and long hours on the road. The pressure to remain consistent, reliable, and emotionally available to millions began to take its toll. While audiences saw confidence and stability, Brad felt the strain of always being the strong one. Fame amplified everything, including isolation. The higher the band climbed, the lonelier the journey sometimes became. These were the unseen costs of success, quietly accumulating beneath the surface of an otherwise celebrated career. Loss within the brotherhood. As the years passed, the original bond that formed 3 doors down began to fray under the weight of personal struggles. The band was more than a professional partnership. It was a brotherhood shaped by shared history and dreams. When guitarist Matt Roberts stepped away due to health challenges, the loss felt deeply personal for Brad. Matt wasn't just a collaborator. He was part of the foundation. His passing in 2016 marked a profound emotional shift, leaving behind unanswered questions and unspoken grief. Around the same time, bassist Todd Harrell faced life-altering consequences stemming from his own struggles, removing another familiar presence from Brad's world. These losses were not public drama to Brad. They were deeply human moments of heartbreak. With each change, the weight on Brad's shoulders grew heavier, even as he continued moving forward for the sake of the music. Choosing survival over silence. Carrying grief while maintaining a public role is a balancing act few people ever have to attempt. Brad Arnold faced moments where escape seemed easier than endurance, but he ultimately chose a harder path. Acknowledging his own struggles, he made the decision to step away from habits that no longer served his life or his future. Sobriety was not a performance or a headline. It was a private commitment to survival. In an industry where excess is often celebrated, Brad chose clarity. Over time, that decision reshaped not only his health, but his perspective. He spoke openly about faith, grounding himself in something deeper than applause. It was not about reinvention, but realignment. For years, it seemed as though stability had finally returned, and many believed the hardest chapters were now firmly behind him. A silence that raised questions. In early 2025, fans noticed something unusual: postponed shows, fewer updates, and a quiet absence that felt unfamiliar. Speculation filled the gap left by unanswered questions, a reminder of how quickly silence can be misunderstood. Those closest to Brad knew he valued privacy, but concern steadily grew. Behind closed doors, he was facing something far more serious than rumors suggested. A medical diagnosis changed the rhythm of his life, demanding strength in ways no stage performance ever had. Rather than invite attention or sympathy, Brad chose discretion. He wanted the music to remain the focus, not his condition. This decision reflected his lifelong instinct to protect others from his burdens. While the world guessed, he endured quietly, navigating treatment and uncertainty with the same resolve that had defined his career. Speaking the truth in his own words. Eventually, the weight of secrecy became heavier than the truth itself. In mid-2025, Brad Arnold chose to speak directly to his fans, not through headlines or intermediaries, but in his own voice. The message was calm, measured, and deeply human. He acknowledged his illness without dramatizing it, focusing instead on gratitude and acceptance. There was no anger, no plea for sympathy, only honesty. Brad emphasized faith over fear, expressing a peace that surprised many who expected despair. It was a moment of vulnerability that redefined strength. By sharing his reality, he reclaimed his narrative and reminded listeners that courage doesn't always look loud or defiant. Sometimes it looks like quiet acceptance. His words resonated deeply, not because of the diagnosis, but because of the grace with which he delivered them. The legacy he leaves behind. Brad Arnold's legacy is not confined to chart positions or record sales, though those achievements remain undeniable. His true impact lives in the spaces his music filled when listeners felt unseen or overwhelmed. He sang about weakness without shame and hope without pretense. Through personal loss, recovery, and illness, he never abandoned the values that shaped him from the beginning. When his journey came to a close, it did so without bitterness or fear, only reflection. Brad leaves behind songs that will continue to echo through cars, bedrooms, and late-night conversations for years to come. His life reminds us that strength is not the absence of struggle, but the willingness to face it honestly. In that sense, his voice will never truly fall silent.